Thank you all for including me in this year's Winter Clinical Conference. I will be taking you through a brief introduction to building a clinical trials program. I have recently opened one in my private practice in Chicago. Here are my disclosures. Clinical trials truly are the backbone of modern day medicine. The results we obtain or often do not obtain foster evidence-based medicine. We will go through the details of a variety of study types in the next slide. However, it's the randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials that are critical for the advancement of medicine and dermatology. This slide depicts 7 different classifications of research. Treatment research involves an intervention such as a medication or device. Prevention research looks for better ways to prevent disorders from developing or returning. Perfect example in today's world is a vaccine. Listed are other types of research, and oftentimes these classes can overlap in a trial. For example, an atopic dermatitis treatment research that inquires regarding quality of life measures. Listed here are some of the more common study designs. In the interest of time, I will leave them here for your reference. But as I alluded to in the earlier slide, RCTs are perhaps the most important for advancing medicine. In more detail, the investigator applies an intervention and observes the effect on one or more outcomes. Pros of this, we get to see causality, minimize confounding variables, and you can study more than one outcome. Cons are they're time-consuming, expensive, may expose subjects to harm, and equipoise must exist between the investigative and control arm. Here are the delineated 4 phases of clinical trials from FDA.gov. I will leave them here for your references. We'll see them again in my next few slides. These next few slides, again from FDA.gov, provide a schematic of the approval process for a medication in this example. This illustration starts with drug development, animal testing, and application, the 3 phases of a trial we saw on our previous slide, followed by an NDA application, labeling, inspection, and approval. This cartoon should really emphasize the arduous and expensive process required to get something behind the pharmacy counter at our local Walgreens or CVS. Now let's turn our attention to starting a trial center. They can be in an academic or hospital-based center or a private practice outpatient setting. Within either of these sites, one can start up a center de novo from the ground up. A great way for a naive site to create rapport with a sponsor is to write an investigator-initiated trial, or IIT. Sponsors will often contract with a CRO or contract research organization to work with a site considered or approved for a trial. Other options for startup are to work with development partners. A few great examples of these are Dr. Kim Papp's group Probity or TrialSpark. Pros of these organizations, they take away a lot of the headache by providing support in the ways of negotiations for contracts, staffing and coordinators, recruitment, and sometimes ultimately a publication. Listed here are both of the aforementioned companies' websites. Cons of working with development partners, they take a piece of the pie. Having proper trained personnel is paramount to a successful center. Let's go through some of those key folks and their responsibilities. The principal investigator, or PI, often licensed and board certified in the field of study, responsible for the trial, leading the conduct of the site, ensuring that the rights and safety of the trial participants are protected and the results are accurate and credible. Sub-I works with the PI, makes important decisions, and also performs clinical trial-related treatments. Clinical director or regulatory person works closely with the CRO and sponsor, involved in contract negotiations, budgetary items, and staffing. And I saved the best for last. A coordinator is often the backbone of a good center. Personal opinion, a site has more control when this person is on staff and is not contracted. Coordinator acts as a clinical interpreter and patient advocate throughout the process, well-versed in the entire study protocol, helps initiate recruitment of patients, ensuring care of all those patients. Some of the responsibilities can include recording data, assisting the investigators, monitoring and reporting adverse events, processing specimens, and performing and conducting informed consent and scheduling. All personnel should have trained and completed testing in human subject and good clinical practice. These are international, ethical, scientific, and practical standard to which all clinical research should be conducted. Compliance with GCP provides assurance that the rights, safety, and well-being of our participants are protected and that the data is reliable. This slide reviews some of the physical properties a site should have. Number 1 is space. And in that space, you want double-locked cabinets and/or refrigerators or freezers for investigational product, depending on the study, plus subject binders or subject recordings. CLIA certification if labs are to be performed. Some of the supplies listed here, including an EKG, centrifuge, binders, computer, laptop, etc., can be worked into a budget for a new trial, but it's a catch-22. If a site doesn't have these on their site visit, the sponsor or CRO may deem you unprepared for the trial at hand. Speak with your sponsor regarding this. And lastly, all of these items, plus any others, require annual calibration from something as simple as a blood pressure cuff to a locking freezer for IP, and the certificate should be on premises. No treatment, recruitment, or advertising can be performed until a site is IRB approved. Two main types, an internal or local IRB, which can take longer. Often, academic centers have these, and then the central IRB, some sponsors prefer them because they're faster. And then 3 different types of reviews, full, expedited, and exempt. Expedited, these are usually with minor changes to research previously approved by the full board. The process, you need to have mutual interest between a site and sponsor, followed by initial contract and confidentiality agreements, non-disclosure agreements signed by both parties, questionnaire and feasibility with the PI and regulatory person. Each party's asking, are we a good fit? Does this site have the experience, ability to recruit, and site preparedness? Followed by a site visit, finalizing contract and budgetary items, IRB approval, informed consent documents, and then the first patient cannot be seen until after the SIV or site initiation visit. Often these are virtual these days due to our current state. Recruitment, a few resources here. Website and reputation are huge, especially in a locale. Study kick, important to ask the sponsor to include this. You can use an internal database, such as a health plan, large private practice, academic center, social media, and clinicaltrials.gov. And finally, there are many challenges that accompany a clinical trial site, mainly balance with a patient care and integration into a busy private practice or otherwise. Recruitment, important before accepting a study, know the feasibility questions well, answer them honestly. Avoiding biases, costs, including but not limited to personnel, training, space, inventory, and being away from your clinic, whether it's seeing a patient or leaving for a few days to attend a meeting. Thank you very much for your time.